everybody. Welcome to Coffee Hour with Paul, the only live show for electricians that is out there on the internet or anywhere, where we do this Monday through Friday and we teach you something about the National Electrical Code, or we teach you something about life, or we talk about the outlook of the industry. If you didn't catch yesterday's show, make sure you go back and watch the replay. It was a great show which talked about the industry and how to better yourself and move forward and how to achieve those goals, and all that good stuff was wrapped into that episode. So make you catch that episode. They're all available over on YouTube for a limited time until they get moved over to Fast Tracks Tube. So while you can, go make sure you check out those episodes and watch any of the older episodes. You might learn something from it. So welcome today. Today is Tuesday, the 22nd of July. Life is just clicking by. And so today we're going to be talking about box fill. And people say, well, Paul, what do I need box fill for? Very few of those are on an exam. Well, that's because this is an exam prep show. Okay? Misconception out there. This isn't part of your Fast Tracks program. This isn't, let's talk exam prep. We might cover exam prep, but at the end of the day, the whole goal is to make you better with the National Electrical Code and talk about all things electrical. Could be any topic we want. Some people like that, some people don't. What I tell the people is, if you enjoy it, we appreciate you. If you don't, piss off and, do your own thing. You know what I'm saying? All right. And again, all haters are welcome until you become a hater on the screen and then you're gone. I'm just saying. All right. So welcome today. We are going to be talking box fill. We're going to be covering it very quickly. So again, take notes, but we're going to be going through it very quickly because I want to make sure I can get through it all in today's episode. And at the end, we'll do an example and it will work a box fill with it. All right. Also, real quick, do me a favor. You know I live vicariously through you folks. So always in the comments, whatever platform you're on, let me know who you are, where you're from, what you got going on. If you're a Fast Track student, we love to hear it. If you've got exam coming up, if you've just passed an exam, you got some milestone and you want to share with everybody and get a shout out, please do it in the comments, because again, this show is all about you, what you want. And if you have topics that you want to talk about, you've got to submit them through the portal at paulabernathy.com. If you go to paulabernathy.com, you'll see there's an online submission form. Just simply put it in there. If you want to be anonymous, just put some whack job email address in there. It doesn't matter. If you're scared that whatever, or you want to use a false name, that's fine too. Doesn't matter. If you want to put your question in there, the key is you get your question to me, and I will answer your question either in an email or a podcast. So if you use the wrong email, you ain't going to get it. Okay. But it don't take anybody anything to go create a Gmail account. So again, you can have tons of Gmail accounts. So don't let that scare you off. Okay. If you don't want Uncle Paul knowing who you are, that's fine too. And if you do want me and you want a shout out, make sure you put it in the message that you send me on paulabernathy.com. I'd love to give you a shout out. Okay. All right. So let's get in today. I'm going to let's do some really quick hellos. And I'm not going to do them all because I want to get into today's topic. I don't want to spend 20 minutes on that. But let me go on in. We're 3 minutes in. So let me just do some morning. What's up, Jonathan? Glad to have you here, my friend. Paul, welcome. Glad to have you in as always down in Houston. Rob Thompson, glad to have you here, Rob. Appreciate you being here. Always love the flag with the cross in it. Absolutely. What's up, Adam? Adam's our resident promotional guy over on our social media. We appreciate you, Adam. Thank you. Let's see here. What else do we got? Let's see. John, good morning. John came over from TikTok. As y'all all know, we are on TikTok behind the scenes. They get to see this fat guy behind the scenes, but I encourage everybody on TikTok to come on over to the live stream. You can also just watch us at fasttrackstube.com. That's fasttrackstube, fasttraxtube.com. You can watch it live there as well every day. That's what you want to do. What's up, Rob? Good morning. Welcome. Shouting out to all the code nerds out there. Okay, time to put on that thinking cap. That's what I'm talking about. Good morning, Irvin. Glad to have you here. Seattle, whatever it is. You still haven't clarified it for me? And that's a little game you're playing with me because I don't know how to pronounce it. So welcome to the show. What's up? Our resident Sim ECP is in the house. Thomas Yingling is in the house. Still waiting to send your stuff out, Thomas. We're getting it all settled. So don't worry. We got you covered. There's our other CMECPs up in the house. Jason, thank you for joining us, Jason. Appreciate you. Glad you're here. Let's see. Terrence Grace is in the house. Terrence, good morning. Glad to have you here. It's our brother from another mother up in D.C., Maryland, Virginia area contractor. What's up, Manny? Sporting the so limited edition Code Nerd hoodie that there is no more available. He's got a green one. Okay. Special. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Red Dog is in the house.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
Let's see here. All right. John's letting us know he's from Cheese Country, Wisconsin. All right. Cool deal, guys. Thank you, Frank the Great. I see you in the house, Frank. Good morning. Welcome. What do we got? New place. I see you. This is your new place. Appreciate you. Glad you're here. All right. So we're all pretty much caught up. Guys, as you say, there's Edward Ellis. I see you in here, Edward. So let me know again what your thoughts are in the comments. If you have any questions that are germane to today's topic, please put them in the comments. I will try to answer them and try to give you some clarity if there's anything that I say that gets confusing for you. Remember, we're here together. This is live. Anybody can do a 3-minute, 4-minute video and look spectacular. Until they learn to do it live and be able to just simply rattle through it, different types of educators, okay? Now, first of all, for you that were on TikTok or on Facebook, you saw a video that I posted about a gentleman who posted a box fill, and he was incorrect, but correct in some things. Like he did have a total of 12 conductors, but he didn't do the box fill correctly, and he didn't understand the table correctly. So we're going to cover that kind of today, but we're going to go over all the elements of box fill, all the things you need to remember, and I'm going to go pretty quick, okay? So again, this is going to be the kind of show where on a replay, you can go back and watch it and pause it or whatnot, but I'm going to go through things pretty quick because I'd like to try to get this done in the hour, but y'all know me, probably can't get it done in an hour. I'm just saying, typical for me, all right? All right, so let's go on and get started. We're going to be talking about boxes and box fills, and the first thing that we're going to be talking about is, and I'm going to get this on the screen here, is the metal boxes, okay? So metal boxes, for example, if you're doing metal boxes, commercial applications, we'll talk plastic boxes and nail-ups in a minute, but metal boxes. So the maximum number of conductors for sizes 18 AWG through 6 permitted in various standard sizes, again, standard sizes, metal boxes that are listed in table 314.16a, so I'll highlight that. Okay, because that's what it's talking about. And you'll see various highlights because I want to call out things to you as we're talking about. So we're talking about all standardized sizes metal boxes that's in this table that's in your NEC. And we'll go look at that. So in case you're wondering what we're talking about this chart right here, right? Table 314.16a. You see it's got all these sizes over here, right? Incidentally, the size that the gentleman was talking about the other night in that video that I did was this one, which was 4 in 2 1/8. I think it's, yeah. And it's 30.3 cubic inches. And he kind of got his math, his process a little funky. But we'll talk about that when we get there today. No worries. Okay. Again, you got questions, leave them in the comments. What's up, Santana? I see you in here. Steven, I see that hashtag win. All right. So this is the minimum cubic inch capacity are also shown, okay, in this. So we'll look at that table. Now, if you look at this box right here, so this box right here is just a 4 by 4 by 1.5 deep. So 4 this way, 1.5 deep. This is a metal box. This is 3 by 2 by 2.5. Okay. So 3 by 2 by 2.5 deep. Okay. A, for example, A says a volume does not have to be marked on the metal box. Okay. This is a standard metal box. So where is it going to be? It's going to be in the table. Okay, for these standard box sizes, going to be in the table 314.16a for metal boxes. So that little table that we see in the NEC, this one right here, okay, and I'll go down. This little table you see right here, you're so familiar with, right? That is metal boxes only. That is not plastic boxes, okay? That is metal boxes only. And as you can see, it gives the maximum number of conductors, and of course it gives maximum volume. So the first thing I want to explain to everybody is, for example, down here where it says, let's look at the example where that gentleman was right here, okay? So in the example that he was given, let's find the 30. right here. So in this example that the gentleman was given, okay, he was talking about 12s, right? And it says you can have 13 conductors in there or 30.3. Okay. Well, the volume for a 12 gauge is 2.25. So if you take that 30.3 divided by what? 2.25, it's going to tell you that's 13.46 or whatever conductor. Well, you can't have a 0.46 of a conductor. So that's how it comes up with a 13, right? But before I even get started in this thing today, I want to remind people that when you're using that example of the number of conductors in a box for those standard boxes, that number is just not counting conductors. That's everything. So if I have we'll see later, if I have a switch in there, that's a double volume count, which equals 2 conductors. So if I have 12 gauge going to it, then it equals 2 12 gauges at 2.25 each. That's a double volume. So in that 13 conductor count, 2 of those conductors could be the device. So that leaves you 11 extra conductors, okay? And what he was doing is just simply counting conductors. It's not how it works, okay? So I want to show you the easiest way to always do this is use the volume, 30.3. That's the best way to do box fill, okay? All right, let's go on and get back to the lessons. I just wanted to lay that out there right away so that it dispels any myth on that, okay? All right, so there you go. The volume doesn't have to be marked on the box. In many cases, you may get a box that actually has the volume marked in it, but typically on these standard size metal boxes, not necessary if I have to do that. Now, other boxes, okay, so if the boxes are, and I'll show you what it means here. We'll go to the code right here. So standard boxes, as you can see here under, here we are, 314.16. A box fill or volume calculation. Standard boxes, okay, the volume for standard boxes that are not marked with their volume shall be given in table 314.16a. Okay, so that's standard metal boxes right here. Okay, and then you have other boxes. Well, if they're not standard, it says other boxes, 100 cubic inches or less, other than those described in 314.16a, which is in this table down here, okay, and non-metallic boxes, durably and legibly marked by the manufacturer with their volume, okay. Boxes described in 314.16a that have a volume larger than the designated in the table shall be permitted to have their volume marked as required by this section. Now, you could have boxes that are larger than this, and they will give you the volume if it's not the standard, okay? So if a box down here was one of these boxes down here, let's say this box right here, right, is a 4 by 2 1/8, okay? Well, its volume, let's go over to the right here, its volume is 30.3. What that is saying, that you can use 30.3 or whatever may be stamped on the box. If the box says of greater volume than what's listed in the code, then you can go by what's stamped on the box. Okay? Otherwise, you go by this for that size box. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, most of the time, these metal boxes of these sizes, these standard boxes, are not going to have any markings in it. So you go right here, and that's what the cubic inch is. But occasionally, you may get a box that does have a marking in it, and you go by what the marking is. If it's greater than what's in the code, you go with what marking is on the box, right? Okay. So these are 2 examples of boxes that are most certainly standard boxes, right? And they are listed, obviously, in 314.16. And they're in that table A. Okay. Now, one of the interesting things about, before we get deep into box fill and talking about box fill, is a lot of times you'll have boxes that have a divider that goes between it, creates 2 separate spaces. You do box fill based on the 2 separate spaces. However, if you have a divider that's separating boxes, it's taking up volume in the box. Okay. Now, last code cycle, I made a public input that got accepted to remind people that wire nuts, for example, while they may take up volume, they do not count. In the way the wording was previously, it was ambiguous to that, and you just had to say they were like devices, but they're not. They're wire nuts. So They're splicing devices. So I was able to get that into the code to say, remind people, no, they don't take up volume as far as the calculation does. And be careful what you wish for. You don't want any more things doing this. Now, but if you've got dividers in here that's creating two separate spaces, and why may you have a divider? Well, you may have a divider because you've got lower voltage coming in one side and you have higher voltage on the other side and you need to separate it. Okay? Then you may put a divider in here. Okay? So dividers do take up volume, and we will see that in a second. But it says where a box is provided with one or more securely installed barriers, okay, dividers, it says the volume shall be apportionated to each of the resulting space. What does that mean? Again, that means if I put a divider in there, a barrier, then I treat each space separately when it comes to box fill. But overall, those dividers are going to take up some volume. So the first thing I do is take the overall volume of the box, like this box here, the overall volume, okay? And then I'm going to subtract out the volume for the divider, the barrier, right? So if there is a barrier and it is metal, okay, then it's going to be, okay, so let's see what it says. It says takes up a half. There we go. Let me pop it out for you. Takes up a half cubic inch if it's metal. And if it's plastic or non-metallic, then it takes up 1 cubic inch. So before we even start the calculation, okay, and hold on for a second. I'm going to have to adjust this because it's not, something's not showing up the way I want it to do it. So bear with me. It's not showing up all of the stuff on the screen that I want it to. All right, smaller, but you get the point. Okay, so what does that mean to me and you? Well, that means if this box was, let's just use round numbers to make life easy. If this was a 30 cubic inch box and it had a divider in it, and it's a non-metallic divider, let's say plastic divider, and it's permanently mounted in here, then I would simply take the 30 minus the 1 cubic inch right here, right? And that gives me now 29 cubic inches because of the divider. Then I take that 29 and I divide it by 2, and that's the space I have for each side of the divider. And then I treat each space separately, okay? That's what it means if you have a divider like that, okay? Now, a means shall be provided in each metal box for the connection of an equipment grounding conductor. This means the means shall be permitted to be a tapped hole or equivalent. So, by the way, all these metal boxes will have a threaded hole for an equipment grounding conductor, but you can use what we call grounding clips that actually clip over the side of a metal box. They are listed and evaluated. We'll probably see a picture of that here in a minute, but those are fine. But most of the metal boxes are going to have a threaded hole already there for you to put in a screw for equipment grounding conductor connection to the box already, okay? Remember, we're doing box fill today. Don't somebody start going down the rabbit hole and say bonding, how to bond that box, and start talking about 250, 146. I have other episodes on that. We have other shows on that. Don't do it. Focus on box fill, folks. I know there's always somebody out there that does that, okay? Focus on box fill. All right. So what about the marked volume in a metal box? You heard me just talk about it. What's up, Brandon? Good morning. JPB, good morning. Glad to have you here. So it is permissible to use the volume that's marked on the metal box, even if it's more than shown on the table. Okay, remember what I told you. So if I have a metal box like this one, right, and it says 2.25 cubic inches in the box, right, but in the table, 314.16a, it happens to say that it's 21.5. Which can I use? I can use the 22.5, right? Because that's been marked in there by the manufacturer. If it's not marked by the manufacturer, then I use what's in the NEC in the table 314.16a, okay? So again, if you have a box that does have the marking in it, it may be equal to or it may be greater than what's in the NEC, okay? Plastic, non-metallic boxes. Okay, the volume shall be marked on all non-metallic boxes and boxes with a volume of 100 cubic inches or less. okay, except for boxes listed in 314.16a, which again are metal boxes, by the way, all right? So there is your non-metallic box, and you see this in 18 cubic inch. This is a simple nail up. I refuse to use 18 cubic inches as a contractor. I always was the more cubic inches, 22 cubic inches, bigger boxes, that type of thing. But anyway, this is embossed inside of the box, okay? It's actually inside the box, stamped into the box, okay? Now, additional capacity. Even though a box may have a volume marked on it, or you following the volumes that are in 314.16a, remember that in some occasions you can get additional volume out of that box by using something like an extension ring, a plaster ring. And if it has a volume that's actually marked on the plaster ring, then it will be additive. Means that whatever the box's volume is, the plaster ring, if it has additional markings on it, then I get to add that to it, okay? So an example right here is this is an extension ring. It is designed to extend the volume of a box. It's not designed to extend the volume of another extension ring. Okay, it's not what it's listed for. It's listed to be mounted on a box. So when people stack these things, again, you have other issues with making sure you have enough conductor outside the box and all that. But reality, these extension rings are designed to extend a box. So if this is 21 cubic inches and you add this extension, then it is 21 times 2 because it's 21 for the original box and then 21 cubic inches for the extension. This is an example over here where this is an extension, a plaster ring or a mud ring or a mud trim, however you want to say it. This is 7.5 cubic inches. This gets added on to whatever the box. So if this box is 21 cubic inches, and whether it's marked in the box or if it's over on 314.16a, you're going to be adding the 21 plus the 7.5. Okay, so this 4x4 by 1.5 is 21 cubic inches. But now that I add this ring onto it, I'm going to gain an additional 7.5 cubic inches. Okay, makes sense? All right. Told you I'm moving quickly. Additional markings. A, for example. So you see A has that cubic inch because it's a plastic box. But in some plastic boxes, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit, in some plastic boxes, you'll also see these numbers in there, a 914, 812, 710. What does that mean? Well, that means that you can have 914s in there, you can have 812s in there, and you can have 710s in there, either or, whatever you have. Now, here's an interesting thing to remember. That 914s, if I have a receptacle in here, that counts as 2 conductors. It's a double volume, and we'll see that in a second. So that means I could have, if I had 914s and I had a receptacle in here, then I start with that 9 and I take 2 away for the device, right? So that's 9, 8, 7. So now I can have 7 actual conductors enter this box. And I took away 2 for the device because the device counts as a double volume. And a double volume simply means it's double the conductor count volume. So for example, if 12 gauges are going in here and they have a volume count in 314.16b as 2.25 cubic inches, if I'm going to a device with those 12s, it doesn't matter how many 12s go to the device. It's about the size of the conductor that goes to the device. The device is a double volume, so it equals 2 12-gauge conductors. The device itself equates to 2 12-gauge conductors. So it's 2.25 times 2. That is the volume, right? That is the volume for the, no, not yet, because I don't have comments. You can see the comments right here. I don't know what you're asking. Oh, get rid of the comments? Well, people, I got to see comments. If people want to comment something like you just did, I gotta do it. I know you want it to be bigger, but I'm trying to blow it up. But anyway, but no, this one is not designed to be shared on the bigger screen. Sorry. Only the code book is designed to be shared on the bigger screen. It's just not how I got it set up today. Sorry. So in this case right here, just remember that 9 conductors. If there's a receptacle or a switch in this box, then that receptacle or that device is going to take 2 conductors of these 9. Okay? kind of setting the tone there. So that's some other marking that is optional. It's not always posted in a box. Okay, it's not always there. A good example would be this one over here. So this box right here has 3 conductors coming, has 3 12-2s coming into it, right? So if we count the conductors coming into it, we've got 3 whites, we got 3 blacks, so that's 6 conductors overall. And then we have 3 equipment grounds, right? So these 3 equipment grounds count as 1 conductor, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overall 12s. And down here you see 12, I can have up to 8, okay? So my point to that guy that we did the video, you don't go like this. If this says 8, it doesn't mean you count each ground and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay? That's not what we're doing, okay? Now, if you look at this one over here, and I'm going to have to do this because, again, same device, same situation right here, that instead of it being just a junction box, now it's going to have a device in there. Well, the device is a double volume, right? So if you're looking at these numbers of 12s, you said you can have 8. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All the grounds count as 1 is 7. And then a double volume for this device would be 7, 8, 9. Well, it says the max I can have is 8 right here. 8. So that would be a violation to put this device in the spot. This is an example of why I would not use an 18 cubic inch box. Because again, it's so much it's gonna limit you, and it's very common to have at least 3 cables coming into a box. So I just don't use the 18 cubic inches. To me, it just makes it more problematic to use 18 cubic inch boxes. All right. Get it back down here where we can manage it. Okay. Now let's talk about those equipment grounding conductors real quick for fill. All right. Filling it in the box. So let's see, for box fill. Now, you know what? I don't know real quick, Frank, if I can do this. It's not supposed to, and it might screw everything up, and I'm going to blame you for this, for your poor vision and poor eyesight. I don't know if I can jump back to the so here, I will try to see if I can do this. It's a little bit bigger. The problem is it's going to be tougher to get back to the code when we need to, but there you go. Just for you, Frank. All right, so now box fill calculations. Talk about those equipment grounds, okay? Now, it says when you have the equipment grounds, and this is where the guy went wrong in the video. When you have up to 4 equipment grounding conductors entering a box, then they just count as 1 volume, okay? So what does that mean? So if I have 4 cables, 4 equipment grounds, 4 12-2s coming into the box. So I have 4 blacks, 4 whites, and 4 equipment grounds. Those 4 equipment grounds, up to 4, they only count as 1 volume. So if they were 12 gauge, the grounds would be only 2.25. They count as 1 conductor. So even in that table where it says the maximum number of conductors that can be in a box that gentleman was using in his video, it says like 12 conductors or 13. Just remember that all of the equipment grounds, if you're 4 or less, they count as 1. So it's basically equates to 1 conductor, okay? So in a box where I have 4 12-2 non-metallic sheath cables, I've got 4 whites, 4 blacks, 4 equipment grounds, but I have 9 conductors overall because I'm able to count all the equipment grounds as 1. Now, the moment that I get over 4, okay, equipment grounds, then I have to do something different. I have to add additional volume for each equipment ground that is over 4. And it's only a quarter volume allowance, okay? So it's a quarter of whatever its volume allowance is. So a conductor, 12 gauge, is 2.25. So you only take a quarter of that, okay? So again, so it's easy. You take 2.25 divided by 4, which is, like a dollar, 4 quarters. So 2.25 divided by 4, that is your volume that you add to it. That small amount, okay? Now hold on, I'm losing my TikTok. Okay? So that's for each additional conductor. You have to add that additional volume. Pigtails don't count because it only applies to the equipment grounds that come into the box, not that originate in the box, right? Those that come into the box. Okay, so yes, no pigtails get counted that goes over to the devices. They don't count. So yeah, absolutely. Equipment bonding jumpers, they don't count. It's only what come into the box, that enter the box, that counts, right? Okay, so that's what we're talking about this. So let's kind of go down and look at an example. So see right here. Oh, you're not looking at it. Let me go to the screen. So see right here, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4 coming in. Pigtail doesn't count. So I've got 1 and this pigtail right here. So here's a pigtail from the box and here's a pigtail to the device right here. Notice this calls out this one and this one. A says conductors that do not leave the box, such as equipment bonding jumpers and pigtails, are not counted. That's what's so beautiful about the Fast Tracks program, is it gives you the code reference. You stop, you go read it, you see what it says, and then you come back, okay? Because what we're talking in 314.16b5, okay? We're talking about the volume of an equipment ground when it comes to box fill, okay? So all this right here is just counts one conductor because there's not more than 4. So if this is a 12, then the contribution for the equipment ground to this box fill on this 21 cubic inch box is only 2.25 if it's a 12, okay? Does that make sense? All right. So that's what there. Now, what happens when we have more? Remember what I told you? When we have more than 4. Here's an example of that. We got 6 coming in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these 4 is just one conductor. It counts as one volume count. So if this case, these are 14s, by the way. So if you're thinking 14, you're thinking, okay, well, we've been talking 12. What's the volume of a 14? Well, that's 2.00. And where do we see that? Well, that would be right here. Here is 314.16b1, the volume allowance per conductor. And here's a 14 right here. And here's the volume count, 2.0 right there. So that's where we're getting it from, right here. Okay. All right. Just so we're on the same page. Okay. Let's bring it back. All right, so right here, this is one volume. Now, each one of these, remember what it said in the code. It says an additional quarter volume for each additional conductor. Okay, well, let's look right here. So since there are 2 additionals right here, right? So each one of these conductors require a quarter volume, okay? A quarter volume allowance. Now, it's easy because this is 2.00 for these 14 gauges. So here you see the volume allowance required for each of these 14s conductors is 0.5. How do we get the 0.5? Well, again, fairly simple. You don't really need a bunch of math to do it. But if I take 2.00 and divide it by 4, that's where I get the 0.5, okay? For those that want to quantify it, right? What's up, Shameless? What's up, Poppy? What's up, Eddie? I see you in here. Okay. All right. So let's see here. What I got to go back to? Oh, let me go back to. All right. So we're back here. So it's a 0.5 for each conductor. So, and how do we get that? Again, the volume is 2. And you can also multiply it by 0.25, or you can do it like I did, just divide it by 4, and it's easier to get you. But there it is, 0.5. Now, it says the volume allowance required for 2 additional 14s, same method would be done for 12s, it's no different, is you would take 2, because it's, again, 2 additional conductors, times the 0.5, which is the quarter volume for each one of those extra 2 cubic inch wires. And so that means an additional 1. Okay, so in this case, you've got the 1 conductor for the 4, and then these additional ones would be 1 additional cubic inch. Why? Because right here, it was 2 times 0.5 equals 1. That's the additional volume that accounts for the equipment grounds. So there's 3 cubic inches of equipment ground due to that change. Now, for those that are in the 2017 code, they're familiar with that quarter volume. Okay, so you're having to get yourself used to it, because in the past, it used to be it didn't matter how many equipment grounds were in the box. They only counted as 1. Now it's different. So you've got the dividers that go in a box. They have a volume count. You have the equipment grounds. They have a volume count. We have rules on how you count the equipment grounds. We just went over it. And that's what the gentleman got wrong in that video that I shared on TikTok. He didn't understand how it works with the tables in the NEC. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at on that. Let's do a little more. All right. So we'll go a little more here. Okay. So next, determining the number of conductors. We're going to work through this together right here rather than go through all these call outs. And then we'll come back and look at the different call outs. So let's work through it. So here's our box. And I'll go to the big screen in case you find it hard to see it. There you go. A little bit better to see it maybe. By the way, this is out of Unit 3 in our Fast Tracks program for those that are wondering. It is most certainly out of that. And let's see, I'm going to have to go, let me go back down. There we go. Okay. So every conductor has a volume, okay? Now, raceways coming in. Remember, we don't count pigtails. We don't count these little pigtails, okay? Equipment bonding jumpers. We don't count any of that. Now, in this box, it's kind of unique, right? Because it's using the EMT as an equipment ground. That's why you don't see any equipment grounds in here. So we're not going to have any equipment grounds that count for this. But we do have conductors, all right? And so first things first, we add up the conductors. So here's this loop. Ignore this one first. We'll get to that in a second. So I've got a white, a red, that's 2. I got another white and a red, that's 4, right? So that's 4. And then I got this loop, all right? How do we address loop? Okay, all right. Well, it could either be one conductor or it could be 2 conductors. Okay, you got one coming from this way, one coming this way, but it's a loop. Okay, so what is the caveats to this? Well, let's look at it right here. It says a conductor that passes through the box without a splice or termination, right? Unbroken. It's just simply being pulled straight through. Count as one conductor, right? That's the start. It counts as one. Now, each loop or coil of unbroken conductor not less than twice the minimum length required for free conductor, okay, in 300.14 must be counted twice, okay? Again, each loop of unbroken conductor not less than the twice, okay? So what does that mean? Let me get back to me. So free conductor requires you to have what in a box? Anybody know how much free conductor you got to have in a box? 6 inches of free conductor coming into the box, the point it enters into the box. So when it makes reference back to 300.14, it says, look, if it is less than 12 inches, because somebody could cut it, and now you've got 2 6-inch stubs, and because you have 2 of those, then they're going to count as 2 conductors. So if the length of the loop is 12 inches or less, right, or less than 12 inches, I should say, it's got to be less than it, then what happens is, then if it's just a loop, it just counts as one conductor. That's it, right? But if you were to be able to, here's the easiest way to explain it. If you put that loop in there and I were to cut it in the middle and it gives me 6-inch pieces, then it counts separately as 2 separate conductors. Easiest way to remember it. So if you have just a small loop going through there, then again, then it's just one volume count, okay? Because it's just passing straight through. If it is longer, and it could conceivably meet the requirement for free conductor at each end, if you were to cut right in half, then all of a sudden you're going to have a 2 volume count, okay? Let's go over to the NEC and look at that so that everybody can see what we're talking about. And I will get over here and we'll get back and try to see if I can't get this all working again, because again, it's kind of weird how this stuff works. So right here, here's what we're talking about. And I can't blow it up for you, but I'm going to show it. I'm going to highlight it for you. It says each loop or coil of unbroken conductor not less, okay, not less than twice, okay, the minimum length. The minimum length or the minimum length required for free conductor is 6 inches, okay? So not less than 12 inches, okay? So if it is 12 inches, then it's going to be a double volume. If it's less than that, and it's just a loop, it's just a single volume, okay? Makes sense? So let me get back to the lesson. I think I can share it this way. Hold on. Okay. So again, this right here, if this conductor right here is 10 inches long, okay, then it just is one volume count. So that means we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's it. So in this case, if it was 12 gauge coming in here, then it'd be 2.25 times, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it, times 5. And that is 11.25 cubic inches. This is, as we remember, this is a 21 cubic inch box, so we're okay. Not a problem. You don't count this pigtail. You don't count the wire nuts. You don't count this little pigtail over here. This could be equipment bonding jumper since it's not connected to, since it's going to the equipment ground, but it's more an equipment bonding jumper. Whatever. None of that counts. Only these conductors coming in. All right? Makes sense? Okay. Now, note, each space within a box installed with a barrier shall be calculated separately. You remember I told you that earlier. So if I have a barrier that's running down the middle of this box, separating the two sides, then I take the overall volume, I subtract the volume for the barrier, and then I take whatever the remaining volume is, I divide it by 2, so I've got 2 separate spaces, okay? And so I count the conductors that are coming in this space, count the conductors that are coming in this space for the volume, okay? Make sense? All right, now, what about those clamps, okay? What about if I have a clamp coming into a box? All right, here's an example. So see this box, typically what you'd see for some of those boxes with the built-in clamps, it is 1 volume count, okay? 1 volume count. Yes, I got 2 clamps, but it's only 1 volume count. Now, see these clamps that are on the outside, like a non-metallic sheet cable clamp or an external MC clamp on the outside, they do not add any volume. Just because they got a lock nut inside does not add any volume, okay? It's only internal clamps and clamping system. Now, the one thing that people ask me all the time is, Paul, what about plastic boxes that have the built-in clamp? It's already been factored into the cubic inches it's posted on the box, okay? It's already figured in there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, okay? But in a metal box where you have that clamp like that, then it does take up a volume, okay? Make sense? So even if I have 2 internal clamps like we had in that box, it still counts as only 1 conductor when it comes to volume, right? All right, so if we look at the lesson here, just an example, in this clamp right here, if this was 12 gauge coming in, 12-2 here, 12-2 here, the clamp would be equivalent to 1 12 conductor, which is 2.25. So that would add to your volume count. So it's not per clamp. It's just 1 volume count. Make sense? Okay. And that adds to your total. And you can get all this in our Fast Tracks program as well. External clamps don't count. Cable clamps with the clamp mechanism outside the box are not counted. 2 internal clamps count as 1 conductor. It's not one of those where you add them all up. Okay. I see that done all the time as well. That is not how it works. Okay. Okay, what about luminaire studs and hickeys? Now, you probably don't see luminaire studs and hickeys ever anymore, okay? But you may see them on very heavy luminaires, which come with an internal component that has an actual luminaire stud or something in the middle. It does take up volume, okay? So here's the thing. Luminaire studs shall be counted as 1 conductor, okay? You're only going to have typically 1 luminaire stud in a box, even if you have one. So it counts as 1 conductor, okay? Hickeys shall be counted as 1 conductor. Even if you have more than 1 hickey, it's still going to be counted as just 1 conductor. Now, stud counts as 1, a hickey counts as 1, okay? One doesn't negate the other, okay? So, and it's based on the largest conductor in the box, okay? So here you see A, right? This typically will mount on this, but this is A. That is called a luminaire stud. It's for heavier luminaires. Back in the day, you'd put a box up, and then you would drive these screws up through this, and then you'd have a hickey, which would screw on, and this would screw on a rod or some kind of supporting mechanism. I don't see it as much today, and it's usually not a big deal anymore. And even in larger boxes, it's typically not going to be for a really heavy luminaire. If you had something like this in there, it's typically not going to be a bunch of wires coming in to one of those type of boxes to hang a big chandelier. It's typically going to be just the cable that's being supplied to the luminaire, okay? So usually volume doesn't become an issue. But on an exam, you just need to remember, if you're taking an exam, if they say there's a luminaire stud, it counts as 1 conductor, the largest in the box. okay? For example, if there are 14s coming in and 12s coming in, and you're counting for that luminaire stud or that hickey, guess which size you use? You use the 12 because that's the largest coming in the box. Okay, even if you have a mix of 14s and 12s, always use the largest conductor coming into the box. Okay, makes sense? All right. That's the hickeys. Now, what got added recently and a couple, 2 cycles ago was terminal boxes, or terminal blocks, excuse me, that are added into the boxes. Okay, we're making a bunch of connections. So what does the code say about these? Well, when it comes to volume, if you happen to have something like this where you're bringing your conductors to it, and I'll go to a full screen and make it a little easier for you to see, and I'll even blow this up a little bit. So this is just like a mounted terminal block that gets mounted into a box. And you want to know how the volume accounts for this. Well, where a terminal block is present in a box, a single volume allowance in accordance with 314.16b1 shall be made for each terminal block assembly based on the largest conductors terminating to the assembly. Okay, so I could have 12s and some 14s and might have a 6 gauge terminating. Well, we're going to use, when it comes to volume, then you're going to use volume for the largest conductor, okay? That type of scenario, okay? And a 6, for example, would be 5 cubic inches, right? So again, that's what you're running into when it comes to if you have a terminal block. It does take up a volume, but the good news is it's just one volume count, okay? So don't have to go freaky, okay? It's just one volume count, right? Now, the reason for that is it's assumed that to be able to put the adequate sized terminal block into a box, that the box has to be a given size in itself because of the size of the terminal block to be able to get it physically in the box, right? So that's the kind of concept for that scenario. All right, let's go to the next. All right, let's talk devices. Y'all get this one. So let's talk devices. Let's go to full because it's easier to see the screen. All right, devices. A duplex receptacle, remember what I said, double volume? It counts as 2 conductors. So if I have a box, and I'll show you this right here, this device, if 12s are connecting to it, no, you don't count for the conductors that are connecting to the device. That's already being taken care of when you do your box fill part. We're talking about the device alone. But it is dependent on the conductor that's actually supplying the device. So since 12s are supplying this device, it is a double volume count based on the size of the 12. So as you see up here, it counts. When you hear me say double volume, by the way, folks, anytime you see somebody say double volume when it comes to box fill, it equates to equivalent to 2 conductors, okay? So kind of get that in your head. When I say double volume count, it's equivalent because a single volume count would be just the size of a 12, 2.25. But when we say a double volume count based on the size of the conductors that are connected to the device, it's not about the conductors except for to determine what size they are. When it comes to the device, it's a double volume, or it equals 2 conductors, okay? 2 conductors if you're going to be using this table right here, right? If you're going to be using this table and you want to use this part over here, right here, then if it says that the box can handle 15 conductors, remember, if a device is in that box, that counts as a double volume, 2 conductors. So that's how you use this table. Not what the guy on the internet tried to do and say that it's just all the conductors coming in. No, if you've got 4 equipment grounds, they count as 1 of these conductors. If you have a device in there, it counts as 2. So take that 13 right here. If this is a box and I have a device in it, right, then it's going to be 13 conductors is the max. Well, 2 of those 13 are going to cover a device that would be in that box because it equates to 2 conductors, a double volume. Y'all see how this table works? Okay. Now, the best thing you can always do is ignore this table, be honest with you, and just do your math based on the cubic inches, right? It's the easiest way to do it, okay? So, anyway, let me get back to the lesson. All right. So, in this case, this is a double volume for this receptacle, and it's a 12, so it's 2.25 times 2 if I was doing a volume. Now, this single pole switch is connected to the 14 gauge. They may be in the same box that has 12s and 14s in it, But this device has 14 gauge connecting to it. So it is also a double volume, but it's going to be the volume for a 14. That'd be 2.00 times 2. Okay, so that would be 4 cubic inches for this device. Okay, and that's what it means. Okay, now I think it's important to understand that even if I have this simplex receptacle, one receptacle right here, again, same volume. Okay, same volume. So a mounting yoke or strap counts as 2 conductors. So that's the key. All right, so this is a one strap. Okay, even though it's a duplex, even if it was a single, still by strap, and that is where it gets a double volume count. So it equates to 2 conductors. Try to lock that in your mind because you need to remember that when you're doing box fill. It makes life so much easier. That a device on a single strap counts as 2 conductors. A simplex on a single counts as 2 conductors. A triplex, if you had 3 receptacles on here, still counts as 2 conductors. Remember, we're not doing the VA. We're not worrying about 180 and all that. That's totally something different. We're just doing box fill, okay? Don't get it confused. So it doesn't matter whether it's a single switch, doesn't matter if it's a double switch, doesn't matter if it's a triple switch, any combination, a single receptacle or a duplex, okay? The size is 2 conductors when doing box fill, okay? And it's based on the size of the conductors that terminate onto the device. Make sense? All right. Now, one of the things that people forget in the code is that what happens if I have a 2-gang box? And I have a 2-gang box, and let's say I have a 2-gang box and I have 2 separate duplexes. Well, then again, it's the same concept. It is double volume for each one. So then the next thing they say, well, what if I have a box or device that by sheer size, it is wider than a single 2-inch device box, okay? So it needs to be in a bigger box. So let's just say putting in a range receptacle in a 2-gang box, right? How do I do the volume for that? Oh, well, the code is pretty easy on that. Let's go back and see what it says here. It says a device or utilization equipment wider than a single 2-inch device box. So let's say you have a receptacle or you have something that goes into a box and it will not fit in a 2x4, a normal like a device box. And you're like, crap, I got to go to a 2-gang box. How do I count the volume for this device, this receptacle? Okay, well, it says if that's the case, it says described in 314.16a, it says it shall have a double volume allowance provided for each gang required for mounting. No brainer. So basically what it means, even though it's a single device, because I put it in a 2-gang box, then it's going to be just like I had 2 singles in there. It's a double volume. So it'd be 2 and 2. That's 4 volume count. It's for each space. Because I'm putting that single device in a 2-gang box, in your mind, it doesn't matter. Just pretend like you have 2 single devices in there and it's a double volume for each. So it's a 4 total volume count, okay? 2 for each space. It's a 2-gang box, 2 for each space. Crazy enough, if it was some type of device that went in a 3-gang box, guess what? It would be a double volume for each gang. No differently if you had to put 3 separate receptacles in there. So just because it's one device, if it takes up the volume that would have been allowed for 3 separate devices, then it's a double volume as if you put a single in each one of those spaces. Does that make sense? There's James Simplex. Mr. Simplex is in the house. He gets it. I know he gets it because he was the one that had to go through it during one of our Wednesday night sessions. All right. So anyway, there you go. Probably not a device. I would say it would be a device. A device is very broad. Receptacles are devices. Switches are devices. There's a broad definition for a device, but it's not just receptacle and switches. So it could be a device. Could be another piece of utilization equipment going in there, but it could be a device. There's many different types of things. Okay, devices are defined, but it's not just switches and receptacles, right, for a device. All right. So volume, y'all are all familiar with the volume, right? Just so we can make sure everybody's on the same page when it comes to volume. There's your volume. There you go. An 18 gauge is 1.50 cubic inch. A 16 is 1.75. A 14 is 2.00. A 12 is 2.25, a 10 is 2.5, an 8 is 3.0, and a 6 is 5.0. Now, some people ask me, what happens if I'm getting conductors that are larger than this? Well, they're typically going to be in a pull box, and they don't have a volume requirement for that, right? So pull boxes don't have the same volume, but I could have a big box that has smaller conductors in it that would be have to meet these requirements for the fill. But usually those really big boxes, you'd have to put a hell of a lot of conductors in there of 6 gauge down to 18 in order to come anywhere near their fill requirements, that type of thing, okay? So bigger conductors that are over 6, 4 gauge and larger, they typically will go and follow the rules for the sizing as if they were a pull box or junction box or a U-pull, angle pulls and whatnot, and that would be 314.28. And that itself is going to dictate the size of the box, and it kind of makes the volume thing moot, if you will. Okay, so that's the scenario. So small conductors, box fill. Larger conductors, pull box applications, right? Okay, just want to make sure that was all there. Okay, let's see here. Conductor insulation is not a factor when determining a box fill calculation. Okay, it's all about the cubic inch of the conductors, and it's all about what's in that table. Okay, now here you see right here, boxes and enclosures and conduit bodies containing conductors 4 or larger must also comply with 314.28 provisions. All right, so they have to. So at the end of the day, the volume that we're talking about that's posted is for these smaller sizes here, 6 through 18. But when you have 4 and larger, now you got to make sure that you're very aware of 314.28. And we have videos on pull box calculations. Hopefully you've watched those videos. I'm hoping you do. Okay. All right. So let's kind of look at an example right here. Let's go on and test our skills. Let's see if I can get this all on the screen. Oh, let me see. If I can't get it all on the screen, bear with me. So this is a problem. Okay. All right. So I'm going to tell you all of these conductors in this example are 12 gauge. Okay. And the box is 4 by 4 by 1.5. Okay. So let me just move this down so you can see what all's in here. Okay. Let's kind of look at, because it can get very busy very quickly. Okay. So let's put together everything that we've learned today. First things first, what is the cubic inches of this box? That's the first thing we need to find out. And 4 by 4 by 1.5. So where do we go for that? All right. Well, here we got to go over to the code. All right. And we're going to go to the boxes, and I'm going to open this up. So we're looking at a 4 by 4 by 1.5. Okay. So this is a square box. Let's see here. All right. So we're looking at 4 by 4 by 1.5. Okay. So this is right here. Here's your square. So 4 by 1.5. Now, you probably astutely noticed that it just says 4 by 1.5. Well, you can't have just 2 dimensions. You know this is 4 by 4 by 1.5, okay? All right, so let's just go over here and see what the cubic inch. All right, it's 21 cubic inches, okay? So this 4, now it might be easier if they had to put 4 by 4 by 1.5, but you know that if it's 4, that means it's 4 in all dimensions, okay? All right, so 4 by 4, and it's 1.5. It is 21 cubic inches. So write that down. 21 CU is what we got. Okay, so let's go back to our lesson. All right, so we got that. Now, while we're here, we also notice there's an extension ring being used, or raised cover. And the raised cover is marked at 6.5 cubic inches. So I'm going to take that 21 and I'm going to add 6.5 to that cubic inches. So that gives me 27.5 cubic inches to work with. Y'all with me? Now, I don't get to see your comments because somebody wanted me to show full screen, so got to just wait. If you've got any comments, I just have to wait. Okay, see, it's your fault. You know who you are. All right, so now let's do this. So now D, let's just determine D, unbroken. Okay, we're just going to say in our example that these are not more than 12 inches. Okay, they're just passing through. For our example, that's all we're going to say. Okay, so this one and this one are just passing through. They're not more than 12 inches, okay? Or they're not 12 inches or more in length, okay? All right, so let's kind of do the math. First of all, these wire nuts, they mean nothing to us. Nothing. Nothing. They mean nothing. All right. This little jumper means nothing. This little jumper over to the receptacle for our volume means nothing. Okay. What means any? Only things that mean anything here are all of the conductors that are originating from outside of the box and this device. That's all that means anything to us. So we're going to count for these loops first. Okay. And all of these are 12s, by the way. So we're going to count for these loops first and get them out of the way. So that is 1, 2. So we have 2 conductors. So it's 2.25 times 2 for the loops. Right? All right. Next. So they're out of the way. So the next we got is the whites and the blues. Okay. So the whites, we got one white coming out of here. That's 1. We got another white coming right here. That's 2. They got this blue. That's 3. Then out of here, we got this white. That's 4. Then over here, we got a white. That's 5. We got a blue. That's 6. Got a white here. That's 7. Okay. So I have 7 overall conductors regular, not the equipment grounds yet. 7 overalls. So I got 2.25 times 7. Okay. That is the conductors themselves. Again, I'll show you. Remember, we already did the loops, so we're ignoring the loops. So you got white. You got white, white, white. That's 3. White, 4. Blue, 5, 6, 7. That's where we got the total conductors. That's just the conductors. Good. Okay. So that'd be 2.25 times 7. Now let's shift to the equipment grounds. How many equipment grounds do we have? We got 1 coming in. We got 2 coming in. We got 3 coming in. Hey, we don't have more than 4. So we only have 1 volume count for the equipment grounds. So that would be 2.25 times 1. That's the EGCs. We ignore the pigtails, right? Next, we got this device. Well, since all of these are 12, we know what's terminating on the device is 12s. So there's a double volume for this device. So it is 2.25. That's what it would be the volume for a single 12 times 2 because it's a double volume, right? So that's it. We've added up everything. We're not using wire nuts. We're not using lock nuts. There's no conductors in the box. There's no hickeys. There's no nothing. Okay, we have equipment bonding jumpers and pigtails. Don't count. Okay, all this type of stuff doesn't count. Now, by the way, these aren't pigtails. See, they're coming over, going straight to the device. That's not a pigtail. It enters the box. So that's why we counted them. So how many overall conductors do we have? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All the grounds 10, 11, 12. Okay? 12 total 12 gauges is what the volume would be. So it'd be 12 times 2.25. So let's do it. Okay, let's take it back to me. Hopefully you all understood how that worked. So it is 2.25 times 12 is 27 cubic inches. Well, remember what we did earlier? That 21 plus that raised cover was 6.5. That gave us 27.5. We just made it. We have 27 and the box volume is 27.5. We're a 0.5. We're good to go. We can close this sucker up. Be thankful that pigtails don't count. Be thankful that wire nuts don't count for fill because otherwise this box would be screwed. And we'd have to either get a bigger raised cover, give us a little more extension, or we'd have to change the box size. Okay. Now, if somebody came along and said, hey, I want to change this out and I want to put an extension ring, but I want to put 2 receptacles in it, that wouldn't work, right? Because then you'd have 2 separate receptacles with a double volume each. That's going to add 2 more conductors to the count. And then what happens is now we see boxes fill. There's no way to get around that unless they come and they use a deeper raised cover. And they do make them. Or they could put an extension onto this 4-inch square box, right? They could put one of those extension rings on it and then put this raised cover on it. And then they can get the extra volume in order to put 2 singles in there or a receptacle and a switch or whatever. So there's many ways you can do this. Stick further out the wall or stick further on the wall, that type of thing. But there are things you can do. Just remember, volume is dependent on the box volume, race, cover, or plaster rings, or mud rings, and any extension ring that you may have. Reminds you that you can't take a box and put an extension to keep getting more volume. Those extensions are listed to go onto boxes, not onto additional extensions, okay? All right. Jason says, send it on. Yeah, this one right here, this example right here in the lesson, that one right there, send it. It passes, it's compliant. Move on. All right. All right, so domes and covers, again, you've seen these a lot for light fixtures, luminaires or whatnot. Again, these are typically smaller conductors based on allowances for tap rules, for branch circuits, for fixture wire, and all this kind of stuff, because it's very limited by the load itself, load dependent, whatever the loading is down on the lamps. So this allows us, so this dome right here, okay, that's not a factor. So what it says, if you're coming luminaire up into a dome for a ceiling mounted box, let's say, it says 4 or fewer luminaire wires smaller than 14, which these typically will be. There'll be 18 or 16 or something like that coming up from the luminaire that you're snaking through the swag chain, by the way, okay? And an equipment grounding conductor that's in addition to 4 conductors plus an equipment ground that you snake through the swag, okay, up to the box, okay, can be omitted when it comes to box fill calculations where they enter a box from a domed luminaire, okay, or similar type of canopy, and they actually terminate into the box. So these that are coming into the box from the luminaire, a lot of times inspectors will see the box and then they see these conductors coming in and they say, oh, that adds to the box fill. They do not. These luminaire wires that are coming in from the luminaire up into the domed cover or canopy, they do not get added to the box fill, okay? So again, don't let that screw you up or anything, okay? All right, okay. All right, let's get back to the chat. I mean, I covered that. I went over an hour, but I think I covered box fill pretty good. Anybody any questions? Let's see. Tank says, would one of those fake switch fillers that are on a yoke be counted? If it's on a yoke and it's going in the box and it's on a yoke, then I would count it as volume, because I don't see anything in the code that says that I don't if it's mounted on a yoke, that type of thing. If it goes in the box, now, if we're talking about just a blank on it or a blank side, then no, nothing would count. But if it's got a yoke and it goes in the box and it takes up volume, whether it does anything or not, it takes up volume. So anything that takes up volume, now we get a reprieve from wire nuts, we get a reprieve from lock nuts, we get a reprieve from pigtails, we get a reprieve from equipment bonding jumpers, all this type of thing. We get anything that originates in the box, typically, other than the barriers, we get a reprieve from. But we don't get a reprieve from anything that comes into the box. And when we have devices, if it's mounted on a yoke, okay, then it takes up the volume. Now, you could argue that a blank fake is not a device because it's not doing anything. Okay, so then you could argue it from that perspective, but that is something that you'd have to work out with your AHJ, because again, they could argue that it takes up volume, but it may not qualify as a device because it doesn't actually meet the definition of a device, which is controlling the energy, right? Not consuming it, controlling it, that type of thing. So again, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a discussion with your AHJ, but I hardly think that's probably more a speculative issue, and it's really never going to cause a problem with volume, because typically if you have that box that would allow a device anyway, then it probably would already have been accounted for when you did your box fill. So it wouldn't be a big issue for that type of thing. And if it's a blank cover with one device in a 2-gang box, then obviously you only have one device in the box. So double volume only applies to that one device. Makes sense? All right, good lesson today. Let's give away some stuff. Just things to think about. We covered pretty much everything when it comes to box fill. So it's easy peasy. Just take your time and do it. Just remember, the biggest part about box fill is understanding that equipment ground and how it contributes. And that's that video that the guy posted on TikTok. He didn't understand how the table worked. Again, that table in 314.16a, that table is just the overall conductors. So that takes into account if a device considered 2 conductors. Right? That takes it all into consideration. It takes into consideration if you have, equipment grounding conductors, 3 of them, they count as one. That's one conductor. So you have to understand that table. That's why I tell people it's better to do the volume and do the calculation based on volume than it is to just use a table. It's just easier. Also, that table that's no good for you if they're not all 12s, if they're not all 14s. If you have a mixture of conductor sizes in there, then you're going to have to do a volume calculation like we showed you today anyway, and that's not going to really make a difference, okay? All right, let's spin the wheel, give some good way, get you on the list. Everybody behind the scenes on TikTok, hopefully you joined us over on the live stream. And by the way, Jeff they're already started, Adam, already started getting stuff ready and packed up to be shipped out to you folks from the last quarter. That's how more efficient we are since you sent your name in to winner@fasttracksystem.com. It's so much better. Adam, you're in the drawing for the coaster. And this is what the coaster looks like. Okay, right there. I think they're cool. All right, good job, Adam. You're in that drawing. I thank you all for coming. Appreciate you all spending your day with me as well. Your morning with me, anyway. Hopefully you got something out of today's lesson. All right, let's see here. Paul, speak of the devil. You want? Well, you've already gotten a wire waffle, Paul. So we'll spin you again because we're not going to be a waffle supplier. So since you already won one, we'll spin it again. All right, you're in the drawing for the flashcards. Congratulations, Paul. You're in the drawing for that. All right, let's do this again. And I will be responding, Paul, to your email about the motors. I'm just got to catch up on mine here. You already have that, Paul? All right. We'll spin you again here. You already have everything, bro. Okay, Angel. Luis, you are in the drawing for Trade Hog. All right, let's spin it again. Let's spin it again. Paul will give you something else. Absolutely, Adam. These are perfect for that. They are kind of small, so if you got a big pint, it might overlap it, so be careful. Let's see here. All right, I'm not sure what I just did. I already given Angel again. I got to spin it again. Sorry, Angel. You got Trade Hog. Let me spin it again here. Sometimes my wheel gets messed up. Oh, we're spinning for Paul. He's already got flashcards, so we'll do somebody else. David Giron. All right, David, you got the 2023. You're in the drawing for the flashcards. All right, and let's just respin again for Paul. Well, you can extend it from the day to day out another year if you want. It just pushes your subscription out. You can have that, or we can spin again for you. Whatever you want to do. All I say is that make sure you email and remind me to extend your membership if that's what you want. Just take it from whatever the day is and extend it up to a year. Just pushes it, you know. So it doesn't give you full. If you have 6 months, and you win this, then you actually are going to get a year from there. That type of thing. So, Paul, you want to extend it? Okay. Extend Fast Tracks Tube. I'll put that in there. Got a lot of great things going to be coming to Fast Tracks Tube, so that is worth extending. Trust me. I'm trying to catch up. We're very lean here. And I've got people working on little things, and I got subcontractors working on things, and we're trying to explode this Fast Tracks tube. And so again, just be patient with us. We keep adding a new stuff every other day, so be patient with us. All right, folks, that's it for today. I've taken you a little longer than I wanted to, 18 minutes over or 15 minutes over. I'm getting better. So again, hopefully you got something out of today's lesson. We'll join tomorrow on the coffee hour, and we'll have another lesson, something. Bring your questions. And again, do me a favor, go to paulabernathy.com, ask your questions, suggest a topic, and I will get to those as I get to them. Appreciate you. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. And thanks for joining me. Appreciate you.